And now on BBC Radio 4, Rave, The Beat Goes On. Back in the early 1990s, a group of acid house and techno ravers called Spiral Tribe became infamous for never switching off the music. Times have changed, but they are still partying. Jolyon Jenkins reports.
If you ask Mark whether he's ever had a job, he has to think for a bit.
Once I worked at Gillette. I was given a bucket and a mop. This huge factory floor with these really noisy machines. They were actually sharpening hypodermic needles, and everyone looked like they'd been lobotomised. And I was expected to disinfect from one corner to the other. I couldn't actually see the other wall, and I think after an hour I put the mop down and walked out.
Mark is 53, and his friends are also a bit vague about how they've made money over the past 25 years.
We made loads of flapjacks to sell, to make money. I mean, I think we lived off the sales of those flapjacks and literally off the flapjacks for about a month.
We were never on the social because we were never part of in the system or anything, so everything was off our own back. Even to the point where, sometimes me and Ixie were actually going out busking. She'd play the penny whistle and I'd be doing the hatting just to get the quids in, just to buy nappies and shit like that.
These are people with a serious commitment to freedom, who back in the late 80s and 90s thought they'd found an entirely new way of living, powered by music, dancing and love, and drugs. Quite a lot of drugs. What was in those flapjacks? Just as the world seems to be getting more materialistic, they went in the other direction, living without money, usually without homes, and with life as one long noisy party. But can you keep that up? What about when the state tries to crush you? What about when children come along? When the drug scene turns bad? When you just get older and more tired? This is the story of a small group of friends who came together in 1990, bonding through a shared love of a new music. They called themselves Spiral Tribe, and in the rave scene they're legendary. So come back to 1989 and meet Simone, who was then just 19.
I kind of got into squatting and then kind of hooked up with various parties each weekend, and then I started working in a PA hire shop in Kentish Town. When the boss went away, we used to nick all the equipment out of the shop. And then there was a squatted place just off the Harrow Road, and actually we broke in, and in the basement it had actually been a nightclub. We all got quite excited about that, and sort of hatched this plan. And I think at the time I managed to borrow a grand of my gran that's right. I'd got a friend who was selling a rig. And the plan at the beginning was, we can do the parties, and then when we're not doing parties, we can hire out the rig and, make our money back that way. We'd turn it into this little business, which never happened, basically, because we plugged the rig in and we never turned it off. There was no way it was going to get hired out to anybody else. I mean, even our mates thought we were completely mental. But we pulled it off. We put on the things, and it just kept rolling.
The rig is also known as the sound system, but the sound system is more than just the hardware. It's what gives the group of people around it their collective identity. Throughout 1990, young people in London, buskers, squatters and artists coalesced around the system that became known as Spiral Tribe. It seemed to happen almost by chance or fate. Here's Simon.
They found me, actually. I was at this place called the Whirly Gig, and just from leaving that gig, a friend of mine I hadn't seen in ages walked up to me and goes, "Have you heard of Spiral Tribe?" And I was like, "No." He's like, "Well, they've heard of you and they're looking for you." So I'm sat on this bridge in Camden the next day with a guitar, and I'm playing "Give Me Some Cash and I'll Buy Some Hash," and these three nutters walked past, and one of them said the word Spiral Tribe, so I sort of stopped, put the guitar down and went, "Did someone say the word Spiral Tribe? Look, this is really, really weird, but apparently I'm supposed to bump into you lot." And they gave me a phone number to call.
Someone else in at the beginning was Sebastian. At the time, he was a teenage jazz drummer, busking in London.
I was a 17-year-old kid from Scotland, and I had no money. I was broke, and I couldn't drive, no car. And I'm down in the pub one day, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, do you want to go to a party?" And basically walked into this acid house rave and was just totally blown away by the music. I've never heard acid house music before in my life. It was just this feeling of being at year zero, right at the beginning of something massively new. It just blew everything out the window. I threw away my guitar, my drum kit went out the window, and I was just, electronic music, let's go.
It wasn't just the music, it was the community. This is Mark, the one who threw away his mop.
It had the sound that everybody was waiting for. Suddenly it was another whole kind of world. It was revolutionary, and I think everybody felt hugely empowered by the sense of community that just happened overnight. And the coming together, the dance and the ecstasy and the LSD and whatever was also important. It enabled everybody to get that sense of community and equality simultaneously. And once you've experienced that and that door's been opened, then that is actually quite a life-changing thing, and is very real. It was as if it was a sort of a zeroing of our humanity back to a really important, true state.
Mark and his partner Debbie were also Spiral Tribe founding members.
We had a big squat, didn't we, on Willesden Lane in London, which was an old schoolhouse, and that was the very first Spiral Tribe party that we ever did.
Yeah, the first one was September 1990, the schoolhouse, yeah.
And I think I was 2 weeks downstairs in the basement with a bucket of black paint, because that's what you need to do a rave, just big bucket of black paint and some UV paint and a strobe, really. That's the key ingredients. And because we were squatters, we had as much space as we needed, and it became legendary, didn't it? I mean, it was, I think it got voted the NME Best Party of the Year. I mean, for some reason, a squat party, you know. But I think that's where the Spiral Tribe thing sort of really came out of, wasn't it? You know, the sense that we could do it, and we could do it for nothing.
Sometimes there was an entry charge. These weren't necessarily free parties in a literal sense. They were free in spirit compared to the commercial clubbing scene, and they were all definitely illegal. Mickey was one of the DJs.
It was just quite rebellious, you know what I mean? It was just fun, just take the sound system, got to set it up anywhere, and see if you get away with it or not. Which is what we used to do. And then we took to the fields, you know, with festivals and what have you, which was much more exciting and much more where we wanted to be anyway, was out in the country as opposed to in a concrete warehouse, you know.
As they moved out into the countryside, the parties got bigger and bigger, and the urban tribes of acid and techno fans bumped into an older tribe of New Age travellers who'd been having trouble with the police for the previous decade. There'd been a famous clash with the Wiltshire Constabulary at the so-called Battle of the Beanfield in 1985. Ixie was part of that scene.
When I left home, I joined a group of horse-drawn travellers, and we used to travel round from festival to festival. We'd been following the tribe sort of accidentally over the summer of 91, I think. Yeah, 91. We were with the horses. We were travelling with the horses, and we were going between Wookey Hole, where we'd been looking for strawberry picking work, and there was a festival at Chipping Sodbury, and then we didn't get the work, and so we were heading over to Kent for the autumn to do apple picking, and it sort of takes, you know, maybe nearly that long to get there. And it just so happened that summer we kept coming across Spiral Tribe everywhere almost randomly. And so after that winter, we were sort of hooked to the whole sound system thing and the rave, and especially Spiral Tribe. And for a while we were travelling around nearish London, and we'd choose every weekend someone that would stay behind to look after the horses, some unlucky person, and the rest of us would all hitch off to the rave. And we always used to have a great time, and I always remember at the end Debbie would say to us, "Oh, are you going already?" And we couldn't believe it, because we were like, "You've no idea how much hassle we've got to go through now from after being up all night raving. We've now got to hitchhike off to some remote piece of England to find our horses and move again." And at one point I just decided, that's it, I'm not going home anymore. And I moved up with the tribe for a bit, lent my horse to someone, and started hanging out.
You might think it pretty obvious that if you keep having long, loud parties on other people's property involving illegal drugs, then it'll start to annoy the authorities. But the tribe simply couldn't see the problem.
We had no intention and never set out to be political. We were born out of a sort of philosophy, if you like, of just to keep the music going. Why turn it off at 6 a.m? You know, no one's got jobs to go to, and you know, met all these sort of beaming, smiling faces. You've danced all night. You've had a really amazing time. You've made new friends. You're not in any fit state to go to bed. It just seems sort of really weird to have to turn the music off and all go home now.
As the parties got bigger, the police response got more and more robust.
There was this legendary party in Acton Lane where, you know, it was Easter 92, where we'd done this warehouse party. It got into the night and there was a standoff between the ravers and the police that lasted several hours.
Some accounts say that the partygoers barricaded themselves in, others that the police stopped them leaving. What you're about to hear is just the Spiral Tribe version of the story.
The police actually got a JCB and came through the wall in a JCB, and then they moved in with riot police, smashed the equipment, attacked everyone. You know, what was that all about? You know, and that's where I changed. You know, you realised that as you went down this road and you were just saying, no, look, we haven't got much money. We're not rich people. We can't afford to go to the clubs. We're coming together to do this kind of party, and we're doing it for free. It's all, you know, about the community and making something good happen in the community. Keep the people off the streets, you know. So after an experience like that, you're going, right, okay, is that means that to you guys? That's how you see this? Okay.
They just saw us out of London, and that was it. They just chased us out across the M25, and we just ran off and hid in Wales.
We were all really shocked and completely gutted, really, by what had happened. But never for 1 minute did we think that we should stop or anything like that. It was a question, no, we've got to keep going, keep going. But we were getting stopped at every junction. Like, for example, the weekend after, we did another party and that got stopped instantly. Do you know what I mean? So we were completely chased around and could never do anything, really.
It all came to a head at Castle Morton Common in Worcestershire in May 1992. It went on for a week. More than 20,000 ravers and travellers from across the country turned up, and so did the TV cameras and the press.
A week ago, the 20,000 travellers had sprawled all over the Common at an illegal music festival, with beat music pounding out from numerous discos day and night.
Because it had gone out on the evening news, you know, just people coming from all the cities, from all the local towns, everywhere. Personally speaking, it was the festival I enjoyed the least.
According to the Guardian newspaper, which you might expect to be sympathetic to the partygoers, there was a general atmosphere of intimidation and anarchy, with drugs and criminality rife.
Why is it on Friday night we had a man wielding a machete in our orchard chasing our lamb shouting meat?
And at the Conservative Party conference later that year, Castle Morton became a potent political symbol of respectable fears.
This summer at Castle Morton and other places saw outrageous and unacceptable examples of the problems caused by New Age travellers and ravers. There will be no soft option under the Criminal Justice Act.
The reaction from the authorities of not turning off the music for a bunch of people that were outside in a field dancing to music. It's like all of a sudden then you realise it's a bit political.
We were in the middle of deciding what we were going to do, where we were going to go. Suddenly the whole scene seemed to have exploded, and, you know, we felt very battered, very bruised, and we sort of kind of like to be at the forefront of new little things coming along, and suddenly this thing was just massive now, and yeah.
There was certain kind of unease that our number was up with our sort of rather utopian idea of dancing in the mountains and valleys and into a new, free kind of future.
Castle Morton was too big for the police to break up, so they waited till the end, and then they arrested what they thought were the ringleaders, including the core members of Spiral Tribe, and charged them with conspiracy to commit public nuisance. But 2 years later, everyone was acquitted. It had been an unpleasant experience for sure, but it may have been the best thing that ever happened to Spiral Tribe. They'd become famous, and some of them got themselves a record deal.
Just at the point that Spiral Tribe is about to get seriously put out of action, we actually managed to make contact with Youth.
Youth is the professional name of record producer Martin Glover. He put them in touch with record company Big Life.
They got very interested. They, I guess, kind of saw us as a possible Sex Pistols of techno, maybe, you know. And they were so interested in signing us up that they said they would pay any lawyer for us. So we got very good lawyers. And they negotiated us a deal where we would do 2 EPs and an album of anything. And we would get £40,000 in cash up front. So that set us up with a new sound system and money to put together a recording studio that we took out on the road. And all we had to do was make some music, you know. I've always wondered why they didn't put Youth in the studio with us, because he's actually a very talented producer. And, you know, we were basically just learning. We'd never made any real electronic music in our lives. But actually we were left alone in the studio with an engineer, so we made psychedelic music.
The records were pretty much a flop. It turned out they weren't the Sex Pistols of techno after all. On the other hand, they now had £40,000, their own recording studio, and a new sound system. Half of Spiral Tribe had already headed off to France after Castle Morton, and those that stayed, such as Sebastian, found that the free party scene in the UK wasn't really much fun anymore.
The parties were starting to get involved with ketamine, and alcohol was on the way back in, and they were getting more messy. And some of the parties I went to were very, very messy. But every time we put a party on with the name Spiral Tribe, we'd have the police down there. Even if we had backup venues and more backup venues, they'd always be there because our phones were just tapped. You know, there was just no way to move. So it seemed logical to bring the recording studio to where the sound system was at that point, which was in the south of France. So we got on the road, built a trailer for the studio and took the mobile studio down to join up with the sound system. The first thing we realised when we came to France with the studio is that our mates who'd gone over there with the sound system had just hit the jackpot. They'd bumped into a country that had totally understood Spiral Tribe. France was kicking. These mad warehouse parties around Paris that, you know, every weekend there'd be about 5 incredible warehouse parties done by sound systems that were French. And obviously we could go down and play, so we could get to play out every weekend. So it was this fantastic period of time in France. After all those amazing times in Britain, it was just this new, fresh thing in France. I just got totally into that.
And that was when Spiral Tribe went international.
The Berlin Wall had just come down. The whole of the East was opening up. I think we were one of the first big kind of pirate crews to just go through all the borders and, you know, collect people as we went, and we became a very big multinational network very, very quickly.
We were taking on new territory, like, you know, from Berlin, for example. We went down to Czech, where, you know, techno music was pretty unheard of, and it was the same like Berlin. It was sort of just after the Purple Revolution.
The Czech people did kind of need us. They were just discovering, you know, Western culture. And then from there we went on down to Austria, and we did a lot of series of parties there. And in one night we earned enough money to buy a sound system, which we then gave to the public to use, which became kind of like the people's sound system there, run by the local ravers we'd met. I think that's kind of what Spiral Tribe did at that point, is once we got outside of England, wherever we went, we left a little seed.
It was hard work to get things up and running and to spread the word, because you never knew what was going to happen, whether it would be the bad boys, like in Paris, we had some runnings a few times, or whether you're going to get completely rammed by the police at the end of the night. And, you know, you never knew. But that was also the most fun, was the challenge of it, of breaking new grounds in new territories. It was brilliant, you know, so they were good times.
For some of them, even when children started to come along, the party didn't stop. This is Ixie, the one who started out with horse-drawn vehicles.
We actually were in Berlin when I had Max, and I was really very musically motivated at this point, so there was really never any thought of, you know, going back to England or changing my life in order to have the baby. It was really, at this point, it was just like, right, we'll find the local hospital and get on with it, because I really wanted to be a DJ. But yeah, it was quite hard, especially in the winter, living in a little truck with a little one. But the music was just a priority for me.
Not for everyone, though.
I think I was in Berlin and it was minus 23 degrees. And yeah, it was very, very hard. And my daughter had just been born and she was in London. And I thought, what am I doing here in this bombed out kind of ghetto? And so I made a decision then to basically go and put my energy into parenting rather than, you know, running around with a big sound system in Europe.
It was similar for Simone.
At the time we were in France, just outside Paris. We'd got like about 2 or 3 vehicles between like 20 of us, and it just really wasn't happening on the making a nest front. So we moved back to London.
She found it hard giving up life on the road.
You know, it was a massive high. You know, this sort of euphoric, utopian dream, if you like, and then sort of the harsh reality of you're not living that daily. For sure, it's like one massive come down. Sort of getting to grips with sort of everyday life, taking your kids to school, and sort of feeling your way that you're trying to find somewhere to live, etc. You know, I didn't handle very well being disconnected. I found it very lonely, and sort of, you know, completely got lost in sort of nasty drugs. And, you know, I felt, you know, my kids had to kind of see that, which wasn't great. I did get some money together and buy this little truck, and I went back out, and that was kind of all cool for me. But the kids had kind of got a taste already of growing up and starting to go to school in London. Jay was, you know, she'd had too much of a taste of, you know, a bath every night and a hot dinner on demand. And I think she found it a bit tricky. I mean, she was quite a sort of willful 4-year-old. And I think she was quite happy to go back to England and start school. She really wanted to do that. So that's what we did.
Even Ixie had to settle down and send her children, Max and Minnie, to school. This is Max, now 21.
My parents partied for a living, basically. And I had difficulties, like, getting into the whole school thing. I was quite alone at first. I was a bit lost. And what was different, it was just... I just didn't really get on well with... It was just different. It just didn't feel like the same kind of freedom and love and sharing that there was between the people, between the travellers, and it just felt much more natural when we was on the road, and just felt more natural.
Spiral Tribe itself started to fall apart towards the end of the decade when they tried to move beyond Europe.
97. Spiral Tribe went on a tour of America, but half of the core members weren't on board for this tour, and that sort of split the whole tribe. Also, it wasn't doing it for us over there, and there was this sort of certain hierarchy at the time that was sort of pulling the strings within the tribe about this tour, and that's when things started to fizzle out.
It was just didn't work out the way we intended, but to be honest, that's the sort of part of things that, you know, I sort of brush over because it wasn't necessarily such a positive moment. We like to keep it as the legend, you know, sort of leave that out of the history, leave it a mystery, if you know what I mean.
The legend. Spiral Tribe were and are pretty good at mythologising themselves. And now there's a whole generation for whom the 1990s have a nostalgic allure, even though they were hardly born then. Rave and dance music are now the dominant mainstream youth culture around the world, and Spiral Tribe have got brand recognition and brand value. But that's a problem, because Spiral Tribe was about free parties, not about the commercial clubbing scene. Ex-Spiral Tribe members were doing paid gigs in clubs, and promoters were using the name in publicity material, which seemed wrong. And so 3 years ago, Spiral Tribe relaunched themselves with a brand new label, SP23. They perform for money. They're a business.
It is different in that, you know, it's ticketed events, you know, it's not free party convoy that it was. And that has freed us up to then explore other directions. We are more organised now. We kind of run our organisation with meetings. We are a workers' co-op, in fact. Whereas Spiral Tribe was just... It was a marauding pirate convoy of craziness. So, yeah, we are freer, in a way, to concentrate on the art and the music. Whereas before, you know, it was a bit of a drudge, do you know what I mean? Having to find the diesel, or to find the food, or just to stay warm.
Well, they got there in the end. The realisation that there's more than one kind of freedom. Living without rules is one thing. But money brings you another kind of freedom. Most of Spiral Tribe now live in the south of France and travel in style.
So here we are, 4:30, on the Marseille to Paris TGV. Along with me is Ixie and Simon.
Hi. We're playing tonight in the Concrete, which is apparently a very renowned night spot in Paris at the moment, the place to be, so I've heard. We've got pretty much the full crew. Meltdown Mickey, the 3 live sets, which is myself, Ix in the mix, Crystal Distortion and 69 dB.
These are the professional names of Mickey, Ixie, Simon and Sebastian. They're going to stay in a hotel. And there are other changes from the old life.
One of the major differences is clean socks. The second one is we don't have to lift the speakers anymore.
Good point.
And the third one is, if it goes wrong, we've got somebody else to blame except ourselves.
Hours later, 21-year-old Max, son of Ixie and Mickey, is about to do a set. Because he too has become a DJ, Max Volume. Spiral Tribe, or SP23, has become a dynasty.
Tonight we are in Paris. We're actually on a peniche. This is quite a large boat. Peniche is like normally they transport sand or materials, and they've kind of, this peniche is called the Concrete, and they've managed to change it all up and transform it into a very trendy nightclub. And I'm here with all the crew, all the family, and we're going to be playing, and hopefully the vibes are going to be sensational. And I mean, the people queue up 2.5 hours just to try and get in, and then so once they get in, they're just they're happy, and you can just feel their energy, and they just share their love.
When they're young, ravers tend to throw around words like love and freedom. What's interesting to see with Spiral Tribe is how over 25 years they've worked their way towards understanding what they meant by those abstractions. What they thought they wanted was to live outside the law. What they needed, maybe, was just to be with each other.
All of us, in our own way, we're working out our relationship to freedom, and I think the thing that's kept us together over all these years is just a true and sincere love and respect. That's all. We love each other and we respect each other. Simple as that.
Rave, The Beat Goes On was produced in Bristol and presented by Jolyon Jenkins.